welcome to the deep dive. This week, wow, we received quite a stack of raw material. It covers two of the most chaotic weeks Port Charles has probably ever seen. We're talking spoilers, leaks, predictions, all spanning September 3rd right through the 12th. Our mission today is really to give you a comprehensive shortcut, to synthesize the sheer violence and, frankly, the political upheaval that just erupts around one single event.
Yeah, and that's the shooting of Congressman Drew Cain.
Exactly.
And this isn't just, one crime. It's like the narrative convergence point for almost every single high-stakes storyline running right now.
It really pulls everything together.
It does. Drew Cain's shooting doesn't just create local drama. It forces two previously distinct huge threads to, violently braid together. You've got the intense custody battle fallout, involving Willow, Michael, and that recently deceased judge.
Right.
And then you have the darker, broader international and political conspiracies, the stuff that's been swirling around Jack Brennan and various shadowy organizations. This shooting connects them.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Let's try and provide some immediate context for you listening. Our sources are pretty clear. This period is just operating at maximum velocity.
Full throttle.
Yeah, we are talking about life hanging by a thread, a desperate race to retrieve evidence before the police stumble onto it, custody battles that just turned, absolutely lethal.
Oh, completely.
And a significant chunk of the cast just scrambling to cover up existing secrets and, other crimes. The pressure cooker just blew its top.
Precisely. So we need to track the immediate scene of the crime. We need to analyze the truly massive suspect list.
Huge list.
Because Drew, let's face it, had enemies on pretty much every front. And we need to detail how this one single act of violence just accelerates every single crisis across Port Charles, from the courthouse to the bureau, even down to the basement of a very, very stressed lawyer.
Okay, let's jump right into the deep end then and set the scene. Let's talk about the immediate fallout. Drew is down, and the race for evidence. So Wednesday, September 3rd, that's where our sources really focus the start of the chaos. It kicks off with a 911 call. Right. Which prompts Dante and Anna Devane to race towards Drew Cain's house. They're responding to reports of multiple gunshots. Now, let's just pause here for a second, because the initial information, the stuff coming out of the leaks, it was actually kind of confused.
It was.
And that tells us something, right, about maybe the writer's initial thought.
And it absolutely does. The initial leakers, they were kind of juggling between a stabbing, and they mentioned this specifically because Alexis Davis currently has the infamous Cassadine dagger.
Ah, right, the dagger, of course.
And the shooting. The fact that the dagger was even part of the conversation, it shows how the writers are constantly thinking about the props they have available, the historical baggage of those items.
Sure.
But ultimately, the story landed firmly on a confirmed shooting.
And a brutal one. Based on the description, sources confirm Drew is definitely down.
Yeah.
The scene description is chilling. It says the shooter is standing right over him, holding a gun, having already fired 2 bullets.
Wow.
And the haunting question that's posed in the source material is whether there's going to be a third shot.
Which implies maybe the police arrived just in the nick of time, mid-execution, or perhaps the shooter is actually debating finishing the job right there.
That image alone, it just speaks volumes about the premeditation involved here.
It really does.
Yeah.
Now, who are the police looking at right away?
Good question.
Well, initial suspicion, according to the sources, is pinned on Jen Sidwell. Now, we've heard that name before, right? Tied to the criminal underworld.
Yeah, rings a bell.
But the sources immediately caution that, quote, other fingerprints are expected to be found at the scene.
Okay, so what's the implication there? Finding multiple prints, even if one is Sidwell's, what does that tell us narratively?
Well, it suggests one of two things. Either it was a deeply unprofessional hit job, which, seems unlikely given the stakes.
Right.
Or, more likely in Port Charles, it's a deliberate attempt to frame multiple parties. Maybe people connected to the ongoing political conspiracy, or maybe those involved in the custody war. I mean, imagine if they find prints belonging to someone like Michael Crinthos right next to Jen Sidwell's.
Oh, the police investigation would just explode in complexity.
Exactly. It's a classic setup designed to muddy the waters right from the very beginning.
But the identity of the person who actually made that 911 call is crucial here, too. Our sources point directly to Kai Taylor and Trina Robinson.
And here's the kicker, as you said.
They were already inside the house.
Yeah. Which takes us straight to Trina and Kai's treachery.
Right. This wasn't them just stumbling upon a crime scene.
Absolutely not. They weren't there as concerned citizens dropping by. They were attempting a literal break-in. B&E. Yeah. Their goal was singular: get into Drew's safe to retrieve the incriminating evidence about Portia Robinson, Trina's mother.
Wow. Okay. So Trina is described as being in, like, a state of absolute panic. Understandable.
Totally.
Yet Kai is apparently the cool head here, insisting they stay put. Why? Why would he insist on that?
Self-interest. Pure and simple. Look, if they run, they immediately look guilty. Guilty of the break-in, and maybe even guilty of the shooting itself.
Good point.
But if they stay, and they appear as witnesses who just happen to be there, they might still get a chance at that safe later, or at least they can control the narrative about why they were in the house in the first place.
So the shooting basically turns their desperate little evidence retrieval mission into a full-blown criminal disaster for them.
Completely. Because the immediate, overwhelming consequence of this shooting is that it turns Drew's house into a hard crime scene, lockdown.
Right. Dante and Anna are there now, meticulously documenting everything, sealing off the area.
Exactly. Which makes it utterly impossible for Trina and Kai to get anywhere near that safe.
And the real horrifying danger for the Robinson family just gets amplified. Because if the police, in the course of their investigation, manage to bypass whatever security is on that safe and actually access it before Trina and Kai can.
Which seems likely now.
Very likely.
Yeah.
The source material explicitly warns that the contents will be, quote, not going to be good for Portia.
Oof.
Her exposure, her secrets coming out, it's now entirely dependent on whether the police find the evidence first, not her daughter.
The timing is just incredible, isn't it? Because Portia, apparently completely oblivious to this close call, or maybe the trap she just stepped into, she's having her own crisis. Sources say she makes some kind of major announcement on that same Wednesday.
Yeah, and the pervasive speculation among those sources is that she's actually preparing to confess to her own misdeeds regarding the whole custody deception thing.
No way.
Yes way. The cosmic irony is just immense. Portia is stepping up, ready to tell the truth, just as her, quote, chief tormentor, the person most likely to expose her, Drew, is fighting for his life. So if Drew dies, she's kind of safe from his testimony, but if he lives...
She risks everything. Exactly.
And we get a little insight into Trina's emotional state the next day, Thursday. She's upset, okay, but the sources kind of imply her main distress is maybe less about Drew's condition and more focused on the fact that their mission failed. The evidence is still locked away in that safe, and now the cops are guarding the perimeter.
It just reinforces the level of absolute desperation within the Robinson family unit, doesn't it? Their immediate goal, protecting Portia, outweighs the tragedy of the shooting itself. Which is, a pretty dark commentary on the lengths they're willing to go to.
Yeah, it really is. And this high-stakes environment immediately triggers alarms elsewhere in town, too. We see some immediate collateral damage and warnings happening on Wednesday. We hear Lucas Jones warning Elizabeth Baldwin, specifically, not to stick her neck out for Willow Tate.
Interesting.
Implying Willow is already facing some kind of trouble because of her involvement with the custody case and, her connection to Drew.
Yeah.
And Elizabeth herself is apparently asking someone a very pointed question about their whereabouts.
Right, the classic, where have you been?
Exactly. So Elizabeth is already playing detective here, potentially questioning Portia, maybe Willow, or maybe some other unnamed figure who had a reason to be near Drew's house or who might have been threatening him recently.
The minute that crime scene tape goes up, the circle of suspicion just immediately widens. It encompasses everyone remotely connected to Drew's political life and his personal life.
So as the news spreads on Thursday, September 4th, this violent occurrence rocks Port Charles. As the sources put it, the entire focus of law enforcement shifts dramatically.
Yeah, this is the political gravity of the situation really kicking in. Drew isn't just some guy off the street. He's a sitting U.S. congressman.
Right, big deal.
Huge deal. His shooting isn't just another Port Charles murder attempt. It has national implications. It takes immediate priority over pretty much every other open investigation they have going.
Which explains why Anna Devane and Chase step up so quickly. And Anna's central question becomes essentially a matter of national security, right? Who wants Congressman Drew Cain dead?
Exactly. And the sources are absolutely unequivocal about the answer to that question.
Which is?
That the suspect list is, quote, quite long.
I believe it. This guy's been labeled Congressman Cutthroat. That tells you pretty much everything you need to know about his political tactics, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. That nickname, Congressman Cutthroat, implies he's been ruthless, highly ambitious, probably engaged in some dirty political dealings along the way. He has likely burned a lot of bridges, both in Washington and certainly back home in Port Charles.
So Anna isn't just looking for the person who pulled the trigger.
No, she's explicitly trying to find the person at the top. That phrasing suggests she suspects a commission hit, likely ordered by a powerful, perhaps centralized source, not just a crime of passion.
And crucially, the investigators, Anna and Chase, they're immediately connecting the dots, aren't they, between this shooting and the previous major crime.
They have to. The source material confirms the two crimes, Drew's shooting and the custody judge's death, are expected to look related.
And if they are related.
Well, the line of inquiry leads directly back to the primary beneficiaries of that judge's favorable ruling, Michael and Sonny Corinthos.
Right.
And this connection is profoundly strengthened by the fact that Drew had recently been talking openly, maybe too openly, about bribery.
The bribery angle, that's key.
It's absolutely key. It's the detail that now links the judge's potentially compromised ethics and his sudden death with Drew's own violent silencing. It ties it all together.
Okay, let's focus on the impact of this connection, specifically on the custody battle, because that just became infinitely more volatile. Michael is apparently venting, pretty aggressively, to Brooklyn Quartermain.
Yeah, Michael is facing a potentially catastrophic possibility here. The judge's murder, and now Drew's shooting, especially with this accompanying rumor of bribery hanging in the air, it could easily discredit the previous custody ruling entirely, meaning it could force the courts to reconsider everything, potentially putting Wiley and Amelia right back into Willow's orbit.
And Michael's reaction to this possibility, according to the spoilers, is extreme. He tells Brooklyn they will do whatever it takes to keep Willow away from those children.
And this is a critical defining moment for Michael, isn't it? This declaration, whatever it takes, made in the immediate shadow of two linked violent crimes, both tied directly to this custody case.
Yeah.
It pushes Michael right to the very top of the suspect list, at least in the police's calculations of motive.
Absolutely.
It signals a real shift. Michael seems to be now fully immersed in the, let's call it the Corinthos philosophy, using force, intimidation, whatever's necessary to achieve goals, rather than relying solely on the legal system anymore.
The line between Michael and Sonny just keeps getting blurrier and blurrier.
It really does.
Now let's look at Willow's position in all this.
Yeah.
It's complex. She's likely devastated by the shooting, sure, but the sources imply her devastation is multifaceted. She apparently viewed Drew as her golden ticket.
Right, because Drew was her key to potentially unlocking the truth about the bribery and overturning that custody ruling. He had the information.
So if he survives...
He's her strongest witness, by far. But if he dies, well, she loses that direct leverage, that testimony. But she still retains the knowledge. She still knows what she heard him say about the bribery.
Okay. So she's still dangerous to Michael.
Absolutely. The sources position Willow to potentially speak up about those things she heard from Drew, which would definitely cause major, major trouble for Michael, and, by extension, the entire Corinthos strategy. She becomes the most dangerous internal witness they have.
Which brings up this whole question of overheard threats. This seems like a crucial piece of potential evidence that could suddenly surface now.
Yeah.
The sources note that, quote, a lot of people were making death threats against Drew, and critically, those threats were overheard by others.
This is classic soap opera plotting, right? Used to widen the net of suspicion. Suddenly, anyone who expressed frustration or anger towards Drew now has a massive problem. And we have to circle back to Kai Taylor again. He was present at the crime scene, remember?
Right, with Trina.
He might actually be sitting on the fact that he heard Curtis Ashford speaking up aggressively about Drew. Now, why would Kai protect Curtis?
Because of Trina, presumably. Loyalty to her, maybe loyalty to Portia by extension.
Exactly. But other witnesses, people unconnected to the immediate drama between those families, they might feel compelled to come forward now. A congressman has been shot. The heat is suddenly on everyone who had any kind of recent verbal confrontation with Drew Kane. Hashtag Bezemy. Intertwined conspiracies and desperate measures.
Okay, so we've established the local chaos, the immediate connection back to the custody battle. But let's zoom out a bit. Because of the sheer violence of shooting a sitting congressman, it just can't possibly be isolated to a petty family dispute.
Unlikely. Very unlikely in Port Charles.
It almost has to connect to the larger, darker international operations that the town seems to be tangled up in. And we have to start here with Carly Corinthos Spencer.
Carly tells someone, we don't know who exactly, that she made a huge mistake with Drew.
Okay.
Now, contextually, this conversation is placed as happening in Jack Brennan's office.
Ah, Brennan's office. That's significant.
Very significant. It indicates her mistake is tied to the political or bureau intrigue, not just some simple personal argument they had.
And here's where the editing gets really fascinating, because according to the sources, it was deliberately designed to mislead the audience.
Yeah.
The sources are very clear that the way the episode was structured, it was meant to make it look like Carly actually went over there and shot Drew herself.
Exactly. Classic misdirection. A red herring. But the sources explicitly dismiss the idea of Carly pulling the trigger. They suggest there is a much deeper explanation for her mistake and, the events surrounding Drew.
So what could that mistake be if she didn't shoot him?
Well, whatever Carly's huge mistake was, it's likely tied into Brennan, the Bureau, Drew's political actions. Maybe she was unknowingly complicit in some scheme that made Drew a target. Or perhaps she accidentally revealed some piece of information that put him directly in harm's way.
So it elevates her drama from just a personal vendetta or regret
Right.
to potentially being an accidental political operative caught up in something much bigger than she realized.
Precisely. And speaking of political operatives, the whole international operation, the one involving Jocelyn, Vaughn, Britt, and Jason, that seems to be spiraling completely out of control. And the core of the problem is revealed. There's a mole.
A mole. Okay.
Vaughn tells Jocelyn directly that there is a mole inside the bureau. Colette Moreau.
Colette Moreau.
Wow. This is the linchpin. Colette Moreau being the mole means the highest levels of Jack Brennan's operation are totally compromised. She is reportedly setting Brennan up, and she's actively conspiring with Pascal and that mysterious figure, the mystery boss.
So the betrayal is total, right at the very top. We see Brennan actually asking someone likely Colette, though maybe he's testing her, if they're eager to see him fail.
Yeah, the paranoia must be intense. And meanwhile, Britt Westbourne is caught in just a horrific dilemma.
What's happening with Britt?
Britt's situation is pure high-stakes human drama. She's trying desperately, according to the sources, to stop someone, maybe Pascal's forces, maybe the mystery boss's people, from doing something terrible to Vaughn and Jocelyn before Pascal or the mystery boss can return and take full control.
So she's acting as a kind of temporary savior.
Essentially, yes. But she is fundamentally trapped herself.
Trapped? Why is she trapped? Why can't she just, grab him and run?
Because she's dependent on essential medications. And the sources confirm the mystery boss is holding something over her head, something related to either those medications or perhaps her freedom. She is entirely compromised.
Oh, wow.
She's forced to manage this international crisis while she herself is deeply vulnerable and dependent on her captors, essentially.
And that vulnerability, that precariousness, that's what drives Joss and Vaughn into absolute panic by the end of the week.
Exactly. They realize their safety is entirely dependent on a handler, Britt, who is herself being blackmailed and controlled. It's a terrifying position to be in.
And the chaos, it has such magnitude that it actually echoes globally. Jason Morgan, who's still over in Croatia, he's reportedly stunned when he hears about both the judge's death and the Drew shooting back in Port Charles.
And that reaction confirms it, doesn't it? These are not just localized incidents happening in isolation. They are clearly pieces of a much larger puzzle that Jason is only now beginning to understand from afar.
Yeah.
It forces him to consider that the danger he's dealing with internationally is somehow inextricably linked to the rising tide of violence back home in Port Charles. It's all connected.
Before we move on to some of the more personal consequences, we have to talk about Nina Reeves. She apparently takes a big risk on Thursday.
Yes.
We don't have confirmation of exactly what this risk is, but the source offered a truly, provocative detail. Maybe speculation, but still.
Yeah, this detail is almost too specific to just dismiss entirely, even if it is speculation from the source. The source material openly speculated on the idea of Nina putting a pillow over Drew's face if he makes it to the hospital alive.
Whoa, seriously? That's dark even for Port Charles.
It's incredibly dark. And we have to stress, this is speculation within the source material. But the fact that this potential narrative is even being floated shows us the level of ruthlessness her side of the custody war, or perhaps just Nina herself, might have reached.
Okay, but why would that be considered a big risk for Nina specifically? I mean, obviously murder is a risk, but narratively,
Because Drew, if he lives, is the single most knowledgeable person alive who could expose Michael's aggressive and potentially illegal maneuvers in securing that custody ruling.
Right. The bribery connection again.
Exactly. If Drew survives and testifies, Nina likely loses any ability to maneuver on Michael's behalf regarding the kids. Michael might even punish her for trying to undermine his relationship with Wiley and Amelia.
So taking a risk like that, murdering a congressman in a hospital bed,
Yeah.
it would be the ultimate, desperate, final move.
It would be. A move to secure her relationship with her grandchildren by eliminating the last major obstacle, Drew. The mere discussion of this possibility, even as speculation, really colors Nina's entire motivation and potential actions during this week. It puts her in a very dark light. #V, legal entanglements and relationship crises.
The sheer shockwaves from the Drew Kane shooting, they just force everyone to confront their own pre-existing secrets, don't they?
Oh.
Dramatically escalating their personal risks. Let's talk about Alexis Davis. She is understandably shocked when she learns the news on Friday, September 5th.
Yeah, and Alexis has a monumental, almost darkly comedic problem on her hands.
Understatement of the year, maybe?
Possibly. Look, when the police are laser-focused on finding a congressional assassin, the absolute last thing she needs is any kind of police presence sniffing around her house.
Because
Because she has her ex-husband, Rick Lansing, currently, quote, all tied up and literally imprisoned in her basement.
this just elevates the personal danger for Alexis and for Ava Jerome and Christina Corinthos Davis, too, from what was maybe a manageable, albeit illegal, domestic incident
Right.
into potentially facing accessory charges or worse, related to a major federal investigation if the police decide to ask questions and, heaven forbid, search the premises.
This is where this sort of black humor of the situation really comes into play, isn't it? She absolutely cannot have the police coming to her home and hearing Rick potentially raging or shouting from the basement.
Right.
The sources predict we'll see more scenes of the kidnapped Rick Lansing absolutely furious, raging at Alexis and the other women. It just showcases how utterly unstable her immediate situation becomes under the pressure of this wider, high-profile investigation into Drew's shooting.
And meanwhile, she still has to deal with Willow. Willow apparently comes to talk to Alexis, likely asking about getting legal representation,
Yeah.
given the dead judge and the now-shot key witness, Drew. And her lawyer is supposed to be.
The guy tied up in her basement, Rick Lansing.
Exactly.
So Alexis is trapped in this incredibly elaborate, dangerous legal lie. Willow desperately needs an attorney now. Alexis's probable cover story, based on the speculation in the sources, is that she'll have to lie through her teeth. Say something like, Rick asked her to help Willow out personally because he had to suddenly, unexpectedly leave town on urgent business.
Wow. So the shooting forces Alexis to dig herself even deeper into the kidnapping cover-up just to keep the authorities away from her basement door.
It's a cascading disaster for her.
It really is. And the shooting also seems to serve as the final catalyst for the complete destruction of the Ashford marriage. Curtis Ashford apparently has a crucial heart-to-heart talk with Jordan Ashford on Thursday.
Yeah, the sources are very direct about this one. The prediction is that Curtis will use this moment, the surrounding trauma, the final realization of Portia's pervasive lies maybe hitting home, to tell Jordan that his marriage to Portia is definitively over, done.
So the shooting, while not directly related to his marriage issues, it's like the final straw, the thing that breaks his trust completely and pushes him into seeking emotional refuge somewhere else.
That's exactly how the sources frame it. It pushes him towards Jordan.
And the follow-up question the sources pose suggests the speed of this impending reconciliation is going to be pretty quick. How long until Curtis and Jordan, quote, hit the sheets?
Yeah, it's heavily implied that the moment Curtis decides the marriage is over, maybe even before papers are filed, he will immediately gravitate back toward Jordan. She's his ex-wife, a known quantity, a currently stabilizing presence in all this chaos.
So this high-stress event just accelerates a marital breakdown that had really been brewing for months anyway.
Absolutely. Pushes it over the edge.
And just as the Curtis-Portia marriage is imploding, the sources confirm that Isaiah Gannon and Portia start getting closer during this same chaotic, high-stress period.
The soap opera velocity is just undeniable, isn't it? Portia, feeling isolated, judged by Curtis, likely betrayed. She'll naturally seek comfort somewhere, and Isaiah is right there.
Yeah.
It confirms the complete and probably irreversible shattering of her domestic life. So this single shooting has essentially redefined the emotional landscape of, what, 3 different romantic relationships almost simultaneously. Curtis Portia, Curtis Jordan, Portia Isaiah.
Incredible ripple effect.
Yeah.
Hashtag check, tag, tag, check 12th. Okay, let's turn our attention now to the following week, September 8th through the 12th. The initial shock and chaos seems to settle down a bit into more focused police work, as the sources say that Drew Whodunit kicks into high gear. The investigation becomes more structured.
Right. And here we get a piece of source information that is both really crucial for the plot and, frankly, quite cynical regarding Drew's actual fate.
Okay, what is it?
Despite the apparent desires of, quote, half the fandom for Drew to perhaps meet his end and provide a neat resolution, the leaker specifically said Drew will not die. He will survive the assassination attempt.
No, wait a minute. Isn't that just classic misdirection, potentially? Or why should we necessarily trust a spoiler that clearly attributes his survival to a specific executive's personal preference for the actor? What are the actual narrative benefits of him dying versus surviving?
That's a fair challenge, absolutely. And the source analysis was highly pointed, suggesting, executive Frank Valentini is a Cameron Matheson fan and maybe wants Drew to survive just to torment the fandom. That's the cynical take.
Right.
But purely from a narrative perspective, keeping Drew alive creates far more compelling friction and story potential. Well, think about it. If Drew dies, the immediate conspiracy might be considered successful. The silence is achieved, the threat he posed is neutralized. The story might shift to just finding the killer.
Okay.
But if he lives, he becomes a vengeful, critically injured witness. A witness who is politically connected, who knows exactly who was talking about bribery, who knows who might have had motive. His survival ensures the investigation remains complex, super high stakes. It keeps the political and the criminal implications alive and kicking rather than wrapping things up too neatly.
That makes a lot of sense, actually. His survival is a narrative accelerant, not a narrative conclusion.
Exactly. Which means Michael and Sonny have to immediately strategize based on this new reality, the shooting, the dead judge, and the very real possibility that Drew will survive and eventually talk.
They must anticipate that Anna and Chase are already connecting the judge's death and Drew's shooting, right?
Oh, sure.
And those connections lead directly to the Corinthos family's inner circle because of all this bribery talk.
Yes. So their strategic priority has to shift immediately to damage control. They need to figure out exactly who knows what Drew might have said and how they can potentially preemptively silence or discredit those people. It becomes about containment.
And Chase and Anna are certainly doing their due diligence, we assume, continuing to dig into both cases, maintaining the belief that these crimes are structurally related somehow.
Yes, absolutely. And this is where we need to remember the professional players involved in the background, too. The sources also anticipate the next conversation happening between Marco Rios and Sidwell, presumably Jen's Sidwell.
The cleanup crew.
Exactly. This is the cleanup crew talking about the lengths Sidwell has apparently gone to trying to, quote, clean up what Marco did.
Okay. What exactly did Marco Rios do that required this level of professional cleanup from Sidwell? Any hints?
Not explicitly, but it suggests that even before Drew was shot, there was some major blunder, some chaotic event caused by Marco Rios that Sidwell was desperately trying to contain or fix. Now, this could potentially relate back to Jen's Sidwell's fingerprints being found at the crime scene. If Sidwell was there as the cleanup guy for Marco's mess, then the job went completely sideways when Drew was actually shot, which suggests that the attempt on Drew's life might have been a desperate escalation by one faction, maybe trying to rectify Marco's original mistake by silencing Drew permanently.
So it links the organized crime element, Rios and Sidwell, directly into the political chaos surrounding Drew.
It weaves them right in. It suggests layers to the attack. Maybe Sidwell wasn't even the shooter, just the guy caught there cleaning up something else entirely when it happened. Adds complexity.
And despite all this carnage, all this conspiracy, the sources confirm that life, and specifically the custody war, just goes on. Michael apparently gets an update on Friday, September 5th.
Yeah, it's a small detail, but it's very telling, isn't it?
It really is.
It confirms that even with a congressman shot, the entire town seemingly enveloped in international conspiracy theories and murder investigations. The welfare and custody of Wiley and Amelia remains the absolute foundational priority for the Corinthos camp.
The gunshots might have been loud.
But the stakes of their family life are clearly still louder for them.
Okay, wow. We have thoroughly synthesized this mountain of information, navigated 2 incredibly dense weeks of Port Charles chaos.
We definitely covered a lot of ground.
Yeah. I think our key takeaway has to be the sheer dangerous interconnectedness of literally every plot thread right now. The bribery talk, the custody maneuvers, the bureau mole, the international operations, all of it just converged violently on the house of one man, Congressman Drew Kane.
And what stands out most profoundly to me, looking at the structure the sources are revealing, is how we have this intense personal desperation. You know, Portia needing to confess, Willow fighting tooth and nail for her kids, Alexis literally hiding a body in the basement.
Right. Very personal stakes.
Exactly. Running precisely parallel to this massive, high-level political and organizational secrecy involving Jack Brennan, Pascal, the mystery boss. It's like every character, regardless of their position on the social ladder, is acting from a place of intense fear and self-preservation.
And their actions are directly feeding the escalating violence.
Directly feeding it, one desperate act leads to another, which forces another hand, and so on.
And the simple fact that Michael, just days after a United States congressman is shot practically on his doorstep, is still prioritizing getting updates about the custody situation.
Yeah.
It suggests that even this huge violent event, the attempt on Drew's life, has failed to fundamentally pull the focus away from that core custody fight. The battle for the children, it really does remain the bedrock of the Corinthos world, doesn't it? And maybe the key source of real power in Port Charles.
Which leads us perfectly into our final thought. Something for you to consider as you process this whole deep dive. Given that the shooting of a sitting congressman seems almost certainly tied to attempts to stop information flow specifically, the bribery talk regarding a custody battle, what does that truly tell us about the actual center of power in Port Charles? Is it really politics and national security that dictate events? Or is the ultimate non-negotiable power structure simply the family unit, and more specifically, who controls the children within it? Is that the real seat of power?
That is. Yeah, that's a question that feels far more dangerous than any stray bullet or any international mole, actually. A lot to think about there. Thank you for joining us for this high-speed, high-detail synthesis of Port Charles chaos. We'll be here waiting for the next deep dive.